Good morning. My name's Philip Howard, and for reasons lost in prehistory, I write books about red tape. I'm thrilled to be here. This is an extraordinarily important initiative. Former Senator Bill Bradley and former Governor Mitch Daniels and I launched an initiative recently called Who's in Charge Around Here, designed to build a public narrative around overhauling government, to modernize it, to make it work more effectively. Governor Rauner is now actually doing that in a concrete way with this initiative, and we're going to do all within our power to make this happen. Laws and regulations have a bad tendency to pile up like sediment in the harbor till it's hard to get anywhere. Infrastructure can take twice, 2 or 3 times as long as it needs to take just to get permits, doubling the cost of it. Doctors spend up to half their time filling out paperwork instead of taking care of patients. Teachers fill out forms that nobody reads. And 1 in 4 workers in Illinois have to get a license to do their job, as we just heard. Many more, a much higher percentage than most states in the country. And as the governor said, most of these regulatory programs have worthy goals. But what matters is how they work. How they work in practice. Are they enhancing our freedom? Are they enhancing the lives of the citizens of Illinois? And the reality is most of these rules were written by dead people. They were 30, 40, 50 years ago. We don't live our lives by decisions that we made years ago. We have to change. We have to adapt. Well, the same is true with government. You can't run a government by regulations that somebody wrote in the 1970s or the 1960s or the 1980s. I think it's hard to appreciate, because the goals are worthy, how much obsolete laws and red tape actually weigh down our societies. We just heard from Professor Krieger, it's hard to get a permit. It actually makes it hard to do business. Compliance costs, often for no real public benefit, cut into bottom line so that people can't keep their business. We also don't appreciate how much red tape weighs down government officials. Procurement regulations make it almost impossible to modernize government computer systems. By the time you finish going through the process, the computers you're about to buy are out of date. Last year, a court-ordered committee in Illinois looked at the Department of Children and Family Services, and here's what this court-ordered committee found. The core mission of this agency became hampered over time by the proliferation of rules and regulation. Over-bureaucratization leads to risk-averse, compliance-oriented accountability in child welfare rather than results-oriented accountability. What happened is that instead of actually taking care of the children who need help, the bureaucracy got in the way of taking care of the children. That happens across the board when you're dealing with obsolete rules and regulations. So the goal here is not to get rid of government oversight and get rid of regulation, is to make it work effectively. And old laws don't do that. The solution, part of the solution, is just to update regulations to meet new needs. You can't run a state with mid-20th century regulations when we're in the fast-moving 21st century. Another goal here is to simplify regulations so that people can actually understand them. Imagine that as a concept. And so that they're results-oriented. People go through the day trying to do what's right. They ought to be accountable for doing what's right, not accountable, as Professor Krieger says, for not complying with rules that don't make any sense. Illinois is an extraordinary state, as the governor said, with physical capital and extraordinary human capital. Several of my children were educated here. The goal of this initiative is to release that energy and resources so that this extraordinary state can move forward at a much faster pace. Just getting rid of these old cast iron regulations will do that. That's why this is so important and so exciting. Thank you.